There is a very big concern about Deadlock that's being talked about in the comments section of my videos a lot as of recently, and that is the fact that Deadlock has lost over 90% of its players since it first blew up back in August of last year. This comment perfectly encapsulates basically the whole situation that's happening. So, I have yet to play it, but I have never seen a game fall off like Deadlock. All of a sudden it was everywhere, everyone wanted to play it, it was all over my feeds. Then poof, the hype evaporated as fast as it appeared. And indeed, if you look at the Deadlock Steam charts, you can see a very big spike, followed up by the game losing lots and lots of players down to where it is now. And indeed, if you look at this just at face value, it seems very concerning, and I want to talk about why exactly Deadlock did fall off so drastically in terms of its player count, and also explain why I honestly don't think it's actually as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. So stay tuned for that, I have a good explanation for it. But yeah, let's take a look at the timeline of Deadlock. So it has player history going as far back as May 2024, and there weren't really that many people on because it was a super restricted early access, but then the game got leaked right around here at the start of August, and people started talking about it like crazy. There's this secret project going on at Valve? Wait, and I can get early access to it if I have a code? Holy crap! It generated a metric crap ton of hype because of that secrecy and the fact that Valve generally tends to make pretty good games most of the time. I mean, there are certainly plenty of things to critique about their games, but there's no doubt that they've been very successful with titles like Counter-Strike, TF2, the Half-Life series, the Portal series, all of these crazy games. So, a new game from Valve is something to get excited for. And so, it blew up, and by the end of August, it had achieved a peak of over 170,000 players, which is absolutely crazy. So why did it fall? Why did it start dwindling until eventually it got to the point where 90% of players have left? Well, it's for a number of different reasons. First of all, the very biggest reason why Deadlock has lost so many players is because the game is in early access, and being in early access means a number of different things. First of all, the game doesn't have as much content as it's going to have when it eventually full releases. It only has a handful of characters, it only has one map, so a lot of things are missing from this game that would otherwise keep people around for longer. Also, because it's an early access game, there are no skins, no cosmetics, nothing to really keep players invested in the game and help them customize and really have fun with their favorite characters. There's no battle passes, there's no quests, there's nothing to grind in Deadlock apart from the rank system, which isn't really all that substantial anyways. So, without any of these player retention mechanics, like a good battle pass, like a bunch of skins for your favorite characters, there's not really much of a reason for a lot of more casual players to stick around, who just want to play a few games, buy a few skins for their favorite characters, and just have a little bit of fun. So the fact that it lacks content and also lacks these core retention features means that there are going to be players that eventually phase out of the game and will probably come back later when new stuff is added, but they also haven't really added that much stuff since the game originally leaked in August. They added a few new characters, and they have tweaked a lot of things. They've tweaked the map, they've tweaked a lot of items, but there hasn't really been any super overwhelmingly big changes to the game in quite a long while. So that's another reason why the game has lost players, is because for a live service game to be successful, you do need recurring updates in order to bring people back and generate new hype. However, another big reason why the game has lost a bunch of players is because the game is ultimately a niche game. And the reason for that is because it is actually a super complicated game. There are a lot of moving parts in Deadlock, and while it's a phenomenal game for the people who are interested in playing a game with this much depth, ultimately, it's not going to appeal to casual players as much as something like Marvel Rivals, which is a much simpler game by comparison. I mean, if you just hold tab right here, you instantly get overwhelmed if you're a new player, because you have all these different abilities that do a lot of things, and you have upgrades to each ability, which is already overwhelming by itself. But then you have all these stats over here on the left, you have these power increases, you have hero tools in the shooting range here, which also is a lot to take in, especially if you don't know what's important and what's not. You have levels to your character throughout the match, you have these builds with a metric crap ton of items, all of which do a ton of different things. There's a lot to take in if you're a new player to this game, and ultimately, Deadlock just isn't super new player friendly. There are certainly some good things for new players. There are tutorials within the game. It's very easy to take builds from other players, meaning you don't have to do much build crafting yourself if you don't want to, but at the end of the day, this is a MOBA with hero shooter elements in it. This is about as complicated as a competitive game possibly can be. You've got a bunch of characters interacting with each other that all do crazy different things, all with a bunch of crazy different items, different mechanics. You've even got a freaking super high skill-based movement system where you can do a whole metric crap ton of movement tech if you have the mechanics to pull it off. That's a lot too. So this game is not going to appeal to everybody, and honestly, that's okay. Not every game has to be a game that appeals to every single person out there. Not every game has to be Minecraft. It's okay for there to be niche games that ultimately aren't going to be as popular as something like Marvel Rivals or Fortnite or Minecraft. It's okay to have things that are slightly less popular, still somewhat mainstream, but yeah, that cater to a more niche audience, because those games tend to be really, really freaking fun for the people that enjoy them. So yeah, I don't honestly think that's necessarily a bad thing about Deadlock, but it does mean that it's probably never going to achieve the success as something like Marvel Rivals, because Marvel Rivals is simply way more easily accessible if you're a new player. One more big reason why the player count has deflated so much is because of the fact that Deadlock is still in this super early access state, and because it's in that early access state, it's actually not even available on the storefront right now. Here I am at the Deadlock storefront on Steam. This is the official Deadlock page, and there's no way to get the game. You can add the game to your wish list, but you are not able to actually download the game from here. The only way you can get access to the game is to have someone on your friends list who already has the game. And then they can press this button to invite their friends, and you can invite from this list, and if you have an approved Steam account, then you will be able to get access to Deadlock. So it's super difficult to get into the game. The fact that the game even blew up as much as it did, despite having no advertising from Valve itself, despite not even being available on the store page and only being available from friend invites, is honestly a testament to how good the game is. It's crazy that it blew up this much when it's not even prepared for this level of success yet, when it's not even publicly available. Deadlock also isn't available on consoles, and this is a big reason why, in particular on social media platforms, you're not seeing as much interest in the game, is because there's a huge section of the gamer ecosystem as a whole that's not even able to log into this game because they're on an Xbox or they're on a PlayStation. And so, if this game were to come to consoles, which we don't know if it will yet, but hopefully it will, although then again, who knows, it's a Valve game, it will achieve so much more success than if it's just locally on Steam and on PC only. So that's another big reason why, especially on YouTube and Twitch, you don't see as many Deadlock viewers as you see Marvel Rivals viewers, because there are way more people who can get access to Marvel Rivals than Deadlock. And so if players aren't able to play the game, then they're going to be less interested to watch videos or streams about it. And also, of course, that is going to lead to, well, fewer players in the game overall, because, again, it's an early access game that's only available on Steam. So those are all the big reasons why Deadlock has entered a deflationary spiral where it's lost more than 90% of its players over the past few months. The game is in an early access state where it's missing a lot of content, it's missing a lot of player retention features, it's super difficult to get into as a new player because the game is extremely complex and thus a more niche game than something like Marvel Rivals, and the game is not even publicly available yet. You can't get it from the Steam store unless you have a friend who already has the game, and also you cannot play the game on console. So there's a very limited amount of players who are even able to get into the game in the first place, and so it's not a super popular game right now in February of 2025. And so because of this, there are a lot of people that are either fear-mongering or clickbaiting about, oh, Deadlock is dying, Deadlock is dead, Deadlock is a flop, and Deadlock is dead on arrival, and other things like that. And I simply disagree with that assessment. I don't think that's the case, and I want to explain why, because there are a few reasons why I think, nah, Deadlock's fine right now, actually. So, first of all, let's take a look at the actual player numbers. So this is the player data from the past week for Deadlock. You can get access to this on the Steam database website, and this shows, honestly, pretty healthy numbers, to be honest. We have a 24-hour peak of 16,639 and 11,000 players on right now, which is kind of an off hour. This is 8:53 p.m. Eastern Time as I record this, which is usually a lower peak for a lot of games. And honestly, that's a pretty good amount of players, to be honest. This actually puts it within the top 100 or so games on Steam. Right now, if we look at the Steam charts, Deadlock is number 105, and depending on what time you look, it can be as high as the late 90s or as low as it is right now, just shy of the top 100 games. Which means that it's on par with games like Risk of Rain 2, which you can see is here at 102, which, I mean, is a very successful game. Or we can take a look at another game, Deep Rock Galactic, which is a game that is beloved by its community. Nowhere even close to dying. No one would ever accuse Deep Rock Galactic of dying. And there are actually more players on Deadlock right now as we speak than there are on Deep Rock. Now, Deep Rock had a higher 24-hour peak, but this game has similar Steam charts numbers to Deadlock. Is Deep Rock Galactic dead? I don't think so. And it's also doing better than some new releases too. If we take a look at Smite 2, Smite 2 does actually have, let me refresh the page, make sure this is accurate. Yeah, it does have actually 10,900 players online right now, which is not bad as far as a high-res game is concerned. And yeah, Deadlock still has more than that, and Deadlock achieved a much better 24-hour peak. Deadlock has much more than 12,000 players. So that is, yeah, honestly, like, that's not bad for Deadlock at all. Even though Deadlock has all these handicaps that we just went over. You can't even get into the game on the public store page. There's no player retention features. The game is missing a lot of content that's going to be there on release. The game is arguably, now, in a much worse state than it's going to be going forward in the future. The game still has this many players online, which is crazy. The only reason why these players are online right now is because they genuinely enjoy the game. That's the only reason. There's no player retention, there's no skins, there's no battle passes, there's no quests to grind. They're just playing Deadlock because they enjoyed Deadlock. If anything, these numbers, this late on into the early access cycle, is a sign that Deadlock is going to be a wildly successful game on release. And another way you can tell is because if we look at down here at the store data, Deadlock is number 2 out of all games when it comes to the wishlists on Steam. Number 2. There's only one more game that people want more on Steam. Honestly, I don't know which game that is. Is there a Steam chart for this? I don't think there is. I don't know. But, number 2 on wishlist. That's crazy. There are a lot of people who will be interested in trying this game out again once it comes out. And once it's available on the store page publicly, it'll be a lot easier for people to get into the game as well. So, Deadlock has definitely lost a lot of players since the original hype around it way back in August. No doubt about that. The hype has definitely died down, and that's because, again, the game is really difficult for new players to get into, there are no player retention mechanics, it's hard to even get access to the game, so, yeah, obviously, the game's not going to be doing nearly as well several months on from that point where it initially blew up. However, these numbers still are not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Deadlock is still on par with many other very successful games on Steam right now. Just because it's not at the very top getting hundreds of thousands of players every day does not mean that the game is dead. And honestly, I don't think this is a sign that Valve has anything to worry about. If anything, this is a sign that Valve's going in the right direction, because this many months on, there are still this many players playing their game just because it's fun. The game isn't even done yet, it's missing content, it's missing player retention, and still there are this many players that want to play it. That's pretty good if you ask me. And so, you might be wondering, hey, AndrewChicken, why would you choose to go after Deadlock for content creation and not Marvel Rivals? I've had people ask me that so much recently. Even though Marvel Rivals, yeah, is a super successful game, and Deadlock has a much smaller player base right now. Well, I believe that once this game actually fully releases, it will explode. Because it already exploded way back in August, and this long into the game's lifecycle, it still has this many players despite being in such an early access state. And also, like I've said repeatedly on the channel, I enjoy this game way more than Marvel Rivals. This game speaks much more to me than Marvel Rivals does. So, that's why I'm playing Deadlock and making Deadlock videos now instead of Marvel Rivals, even though I guess if I were a responsible businessman, I would be making Marvel Rivals videos now, wouldn't I? Except they'd be soulless. My heart wouldn't be in it. So, yeah, I'd rather make content about a game I enjoy, and that's where we're going to leave it with today's video. So hopefully that elucidates why I think that this game has lost a bunch of players, but why I think, at the end of the day, it's probably fine. Deadlock is still a pretty successful game considering all the handicaps that it has compared to many other games that it's currently bumping elbows with in the Steam charts right now. And so, yeah, let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more Deadlock content from me, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.